Welcome to another episode, and this time it's going to be a panel discussion. The panel discussion is on the Great Divide, bridging the gap between identity and security in a zero trust journey. And to have this conversation, I have industry veterans with lots of experience. And I just did a quick count of collective experience. All experience put together, it adds up to over 70 man years. And if I were to discount other experience, when we started our career, we all started somewhere else and then eventually came into cyber, I would easily guess it to be more than 50 man years of experience. And this experience is not limited to one geography. I take pride in saying that all of us have worked across the globe in different countries, starting from the Far East, New Zealand, and to the West in the US. We've worked with different clientele in different geographies, in different industries. And all of us have played multiple roles. And today, we are advising the C-suite. We are not telling them about technology. We are enabling business in a secure manner. How to do business in a secure manner. That's what all of us in this forum are doing. Right. So with me, I have Azmie Sali, Susantha Silva, and Enesh Fernando. And as we speak, Azmie is right now in Sri Lanka. Susantha is in New Zealand, and Enesh is in Ireland. And the beauty is their work is not restricted to that geography. They are continuously engaging with different global organizations all the time. And one common factor, all of us have been part of this great company, John Keel's. Right? At some point in time, we've all been there. We continue to serve, continue to work alongside with other professionals. So to get this discussion started, why do you think there's historically been a disconnect between identity and security in an enterprise environments? Asmi, we'll start with you.
So, Sujit, good to have been here. So, I think the most appropriate one in this sense is going to be the separate operational domains that today organizations are looking at, because they're looking at IT functions as separate, business operations and business management separate, security separate, and of course perimeter defense also as a separate entity. So they all work in silos. That creates a huge disconnect where people don't collaborate together to solve one question. One problem that we have, which is the security for zero trust in the pillar. The other thing is that different organizations have different priorities. So they focus more on building the value of the organization. And sometimes when they build that value and the tools that they use, they also work in silos. So this creates a huge friction between the enterprise environments.
Absolutely. So, Santa, what's your view?
Okay, first of all, thanks for just inviting me, and then nice to see all four of us in the same forum. Now, I think on top of what Azmie mentioned, that two different teams we were looking at from the legacy, most of the time in enterprise organizations still, like identity team and the security team still working like separate silos. This actually been the biggest friction for us in most of the enterprise organization. And the other thing is like there are legacy applications that also have a bigger impact for us when we try to talk about identity-based solutions or zero trust discussions or journey. So those are actually been what I seen as a major problem. And the other thing is like the existing security solutions also having lack of like vicinity into their environment. That also going to go ahead with a major barrier for us. Example, like we talk about, I don't go on the product names, but the key thing is when we talk to customers about the hybrid cloud journey, now it's a whole paradigm shift. In that time, the legacy tools are not ready, security tools are not ready to support for that kind of a journey. So these things really actually dividing the organization's internal teams also with a different way without getting towards the exact journey we are expecting. So those are the traditional issues that I see at the moment. But the good news is like most of them we have been able to pass, but still, I would still say 20% is still there in the environment that we are struggling to resolve at the moment. It's a journey. That's
Okay.
the thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Enesh?
So both Azmie and Susantha said valuable insights on this specific question. So I would like to bring a different perspective altogether. So identity historically been seen as an IT function rather than a security function, right? And then security has been seen as the gatekeeper on the holistic view, right? So this was the era where the firewalls was the king and not identity, and identity was an IT function, and they treated separately. So this disconnect went through back, but then nowadays the identity is a new parameter which comes in, and then the involvement of SaaS applications, and then identity being in front and the firewalls coming in the back. So this involvement is being still siloed. That's the main problem that we have to focus on right now at this stage.
I think you all have kind of set the background for this conversation. And for myself, I think of zero trust as inviting friends for a party. And when I invite them, their access to the venue should be seamless, pleasant experience. I also want to ensure that I don't have uninvited, unwanted guests as well. Right? So with that thought, I just want to bring Azmie in. And Azmie, organizations, all of you all have mentioned the word journey. So I would assume several organizations still have legacy applications. And Enesh, you did talk about the modern applications, the cloud native applications. So Azmie, how do you see this affecting the conversation where we are talking about convergence or divergence of identity and security when you have legacy applications and then you are talking about modern cloud native applications? Azmie?
Absolutely, Sujit. Yeah. So I think the problem worsens with the legacy applications when you come into modern security, modern identity to implement and run across entire organizations, right? Because legacy applications used to work in silos, just like we discussed about zero trust, right, with different departments, and they require separate identity stores. For example, on databases, they might maintain the IDs for that particular system. The directory services will be another system to, have the machines onboarded. This basically forces organizations to maintain and disconnects the entire security control, right? It also creates an entire technical barrier in terms of integration and when they try to work together as well, right? So what we see today with these legacy systems is phasing out in the zero trust journey. So that is one part of the entire journey. I know it's a difficult journey, but it's something that has to be done. And eliminating the traditional network parameter, which Enesh spoke about, right? Making the new boundary as identity. Yeah, your new security boundary is going to be identity, right? It's no longer going to be your networks, right? So this goes into all the applications that you're using, SaaS-based applications that you're building, things like that, new systems that you're going to start using as well, right? And this also comes into a point where shared responsibility when it comes to convergence is that the identity and security, you cannot separate it. It has to be together, right? So you need to prioritize that in an organization when you have a legacy a platform and you're trying to go into the cloud adoption journey. You also need to make sure that every application that you have or you build or you buy needs to be cloud native tools, and they should have the natural integration to the identity. and of course security function. So what we are talking about is a single truth, which is a single data store for your identity, and this will make sure that organizations will rethink how they adapt the entire security architecture and the identity-centric model uh, for all the applications that they're using, right? So this is very important in that sense, and I believe this is a journey, and then it needs to take into in stages and phases.
Something which caught my attention.
Yeah.
You did speak repeatedly, directly or indirectly in subtle ways. You talked about identity-centric.
Yeah.
Right? The journey has to be identity-centric. Today, when we engage with several customers, one of the things which we always encounter and see is there are multiple directory services. Right? Some of them are, centered around directory services from Microsoft, Azure Active Directory, or maybe Okta, or it could be something else. And then the application team, they would go and build their own identity engine. That becomes a challenge, right?
Yes.
So, Enesh, can you walk us through where do you see more silos being created like that? Do you see a technical silo, organizational silo? What are you seeing?
There are two ways, Sujit. The main two silos that I've seen so far across the industry, right? So there's a process gap in between these two, as well as there's a technology gap as well. So back in 2018, we've implemented a security Enesh solution to the company. So if these solutions don't talk to each other, right, that does not bring any fruitful value to a security person or security lens, because it's been siloed and then it gives you the details what it knows only. But then let's take a step back and let's see, what if we integrate this with different products across the environment and talk to each other, and they share the information cutting across, and then finally, as a security person, we'll give a fruitful information which sees a 360-degree view in the technology perspective. That's one part of this, right? The second point will be the process element, which comes and amalgamate with the people element into the picture, right? Where's this shared responsibility lies in, as we rightly said, because it's not a one-day thing, or it's not an end-date game that we are playing here. It's a journey, it's a transformation journey, what we would like to emphasize to the industry. So during this journey, where is my responsibility lies within, and there will be a cross-functional responsibilities for different teams to bring this up and then to run this marathon together. So those are the two disconnects that we have seen. So the different products don't talk to each other. They work in different silos, and then they'll showcase what they know, rather than they talk to each other and give a fruitful solution or fruitful answer for the security person. The second point I would like to emphasize is the process gap that we have seen across the industry, and they like to work alone rather than working cross collaboration.
Absolutely. So you spoke about accountability, the human side of it. Then you're also talking about a process. And then we are also talking about a journey. Susantha, any real world examples you could bring to the conversation where we could use that as a case to illustrate? You don't have to mention organizations' names, but
Yeah.
maybe a few challenges which you see to embark on this journey. People may have embarked on this journey. They may not be even aware that they are already in that journey, or they're caught up in this knowingly or unknowingly, but the challenges which they probably face or they are not aware of.
Okay, I'll pick it up from what Enesh mentioned about that different departments, when they don't have the integration. I have a good example exposing about the company name. It says each department, they have purchased their own solution to serve their internal customers and external customers. And the lack of that visibility for the IT department sometimes, that's it's a major challenge that I have seen within the current project I'm working on. So each of
Right.
them within the application, as you correctly mentioned, Sujit, they are creating their own identity within the application. So lack of integration. And now the other part is very clearly lack of process. Sometimes the process are there not being followed. Then who is monitoring them? Due to those reasons, I have seen some of the vendors, some of the users who handle that application left the organization. The others doesn't have much documentation, and then the IT department, IT team keep on claiming, oh, we don't know, there's no integration with the application, so now we can't help you on so many issues. So it's very clearly the process driven. And then from the top management all the way the acceptance of that one, following those guidelines. So many guidelines, I mean, so many security policies we can write down, but if it's not being followed properly, that's a major issue. And then I think going back to the history, I think the good example is we can even go back to the SolarWinds attacks. So I just dig into a little bit more into that one, just to highlight on a couple of key points. Even though it's called as a supply chain attack, the important thing is from an identity perspective, even though they have the security controls, but they don't have gone on to the in-depth level, like having the conditional access, the privilege identity management more properly implemented. So those things, everyone thinks like, okay, if you have the username and password, if I have some MFA, might be enough. No, with the current context, how we are going on right now, good example of that SolarWinds one is you have to go in depth now. You want to identify, even if you have a privilege identity management is there, just keep on monitoring each session wide. What's going on? Do you have a system to identify if there's any anomaly happening on that one, how you detect that one? So when you ask these questions from the organization, not penalize, it's like encouragement or enlightenment. So then they can think about, from a ground point of view, okay, always think about your environment being attacked. So what are the ground rules do you have? What are the detection you have? When you take that conversation with them, it's really easy for us to help them out. But these things are a couple of things I can actually pass back for the audience. But happy to discuss further throughout our sessions today.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up the SolarWinds to the conversation, right? I mean, right now, as we speak, there are two major hacks which are being discussed in the global forums. One is MNS, Marks and Spencers, right? That is also identity-centric, which happened in the supply chain. It happened to be a support partner who got compromised, right? Then Coinbase. That's a very interesting conversation. Again, it's to do with insiders, internal users, internal identities who were in the pay of the bad actors. So, what I'm hearing, and I'm sure you would agree with me, is that the risk or the failures are more increasingly evident that it is happening due to lack of governance with respect to the identities. Is that a fair statement, Azmi? I mean, I
Yep.
probably take a quick check. Do you want to comment?
Yeah,
Anything
I
to?
mean, definitely, because I think the governance and the policy enforcement is really important. And Susantha brought up when he responded on the SolarWinds attack, right? So, in from my experience, what I see is that identity. What a lot of people know is just about the username, password, and multi-factor authentication, right? But there's a lot more. So when you are developing applications, you have REST APIs. You have applications that authenticate. So those are all identities. There are managed identities, right, within the platform. All of these has to be, for example, encrypted, and there are ways to secure those things. This is where I think a lot of organizations today miss that to look at, and that should be driven by policy, because policy should say, for example, if you're using REST APIs, where are the keys are going to be stored, right? How the keys are going to be communicated with applications, because applications are talking to each other. Things like that has to be in place, and there are technologies available already, but a lot of people tend to not to use the technology. Um, um, and ignore it. But if you put in policy wise and if you do a checklist of what needs to be checked in an application, these are the priorities that you need to go through. And then I'm sure a governance and policy framework would strengthen the security in the organization.
Absolutely. Before I move into the next section, Enesh, any closing thoughts on, or any thoughts you want to share on both what Azmie and Susantha said?
100% Sujit. So, so the only thing that we would like to think here is um, this is a mindset shift. It's not just a checklist, right? So during this mindset shift, there are different elements which comes into play. Like federal governments put different executive orders. Like the Biden government already put an executive order back in 2022, transforming the full federal government into a zero trust architecture government, and then aligned to the zero trust principles. So likewise, there are different elements. That's the very high level of thought process which comes in. And then if you step down further, so there will be huge organizations. It can be retail, it can be FMCG, PFSI, different elements on the industry verticals put the governance structure into place, right? And then as the IT staff or the security staff, right, below that. So within the organization has to have a mindset of culture or embedded DNA, I would say, to adhere to these zero trust principles, like the three basic elements: verify explicitly, give least privileges, and assume breach as always, because the threat actors that we all know, right? So they're everywhere. So we talk about might attack framework, and then they're cutting across all the places, and then how they take the access on the initial access phase, the very first one, will be targeting the weakest link, which is the identity in the organization. So our focus will be wrap around identity, and then how do we safeguard them, and how do we educate and empower them.
So thank you, all of you, for setting the context. And what we have been able to achieve up until now is to establish there is a divide. There is a divide. There is a silo. Unless and otherwise, the divide is identified and remediated, this is going to continue as a challenge. So I want to go to the next stage. What does zero trust provide as an opportunity? Is it an opportunity, or is it just another buzzword where everybody is banking on this word to drive some of their agendas? So for that, I'd like to hear from all of you. What does zero trust mean to you? Let's start with Susantha. What does zero trust mean to you or to your customers?
Yes, Sujit, I can put it in a simple way, thinking like this. Now, initially, most of the customers had, from a legacy point of view, we call it secure perimeter mode, or let's say the castle mode. Now, I would say don't use that word anymore. There's no more secure perimeter at all. Very simply put it like that, because now each and every organizations, every user will be actually working on multiple applications from multiple locations. So we call this as proliferation, mobile devices, and then also increase external partner engagement. With all that, my question back to the audience is, where is the castle mode? There's nothing like that anymore. So that's being said. Now let's thinking never trust, always verify. So that's what zero trust model is all about. So in that case, Enesh clearly highlighted. Now we go back focusing on to the weakest link, identity. So now within the zero trust model, again we will be nitty-gritty going back. I would be happy to take the conversation later further. But think about high level. Now we are going to focus on every login will be verified explicitly, and then we need to make sure we have taken very careful look at it. Use the least privilege model access. Do they really need that access? And then the other thing is, as Enesh also highlighted, I want to repeat that point. Assume the breach model. Think about like if that happens, how you are going to handle that one if it's compromised. So with that, that's I would say the motto now for the zero trust for any organizations. So identity is going to become the new perimeter. So with that, I would actually pass it to you back to Sujit, because then we have, I think, more to talk about. A little bit of
Oh,
a
yes.
technical conjunction will happen
Of
during that time.
Absolutely. Inesh, very briefly, what does that mean to you? What does zero trust mean to you? Do you agree with Susantha, or you have a different view?
I definitely agree. I definitely agree with all the panelists. To be honest, Susantha and Azmie as well. Let's take this way, right? This world is not static. This world is always been dynamic. It's changing, evolvingly changing, and the trust is evolving as well with that. So, with that thought process, right? Let's take you enter to a building. So the first thing that you're gonna meet is the front desk security guard or the front desk person who's on the reception. Is he gonna trust you? No, the very first thing he's gonna ask is very first question is who are you and why are you here? Taking that simple example, the physical example, which we come across daily basis, day-to-day activities, right? Bring that to the digital world right now. It's the same thing that we should do and we must do. We always ask, who are you? Why are you here? Are you allowed to be here, first of all? And then what's your thoughts on this one, right? So what are you going to do then next? So that's the whole holistic idea. I say the zero trust is already there for a long time in the world. The only thing is we haven't seen that in a different lens. Now we are taking those different lenses and putting into our eyes and say, all right, oh, this is a new thing. No, it's not. It was there. Only thing is we haven't seen that. That's my thought.
Yep, very well illustrated, Enesh. Azmi,
Yeah, I
what is
mean,
it for you?
I agree with both Susantha and Enesh. I mean, I would just say that don't automatically trust anyone or anything, even if it's inside the organization. That is because there can be insider risks as well or insider attacks as well. Verify every single user, every single device before they access any information in your organization, right? And always make sure that people have the minimum access that they need to perform that particular task or a job. And of course, continuous check for the users, eligibility, access, legitimate applications, and of course, information that you have in this.
Okay. So for me, right, I agree with all of you. I've used this word zero trust, and sometimes it has offended people culturally. People react and say, "What do you mean? You don't trust me?" So there was an aversion in certain markets. But then I went around looking to really find this. I said, do not assume trust. Do not assume trust, which means you verify, continuously verify. Right? And going back to Susantha's opening note in this session, you talked about the brick and mortar. I have increasingly seen when there is a cyber breach or it has impacted one specific organization and every other organization in the vertical, they go back to a brick and mortar operations mode. All remote access, all external parties are not permitted to continue to work. Right? We've seen this in this part of the world. We are seeing it in the Europe. When MLS was impacted, they had to bring their online store down. Right? It's still not up. And it's hurting their top line and the bottom line. And worse still, the directors or the key executives of the organization who had stock options, they're getting a big hit. They're incurring huge losses on their stocks. Right? So this conversation is now manifesting to become something bigger, which people have not been looking at that way. Like Enesh said, the optics have changed. It has always been there. It's just that we have conveniently refrained to acknowledge. So with that thought, Susantha, how does identity fit into the zero trust architecture? Does it fit at all?
Good one.
Or
Good question.
are we trying to, forcefully fix it in?
look at it like related by net. Zero trust is a new concept. It's not a new thing. It has been for a couple of decades been there. But
Yeah.
recently, like a couple of years back, it has been surfaced again. That's the only thing I would say in a simple way. But
Mhm.
then again, as I mentioned earlier, because of the shift of the business, like going beyond the castle mode, now the question comes then how are we going to actually manage them? So the key thing is everyone is actually, every application, user, device is going to be central focus on identity. So that's why in Zero Trust, identity is going to play a major role, I would say, because it's going to be the control plane, first of all. Because every request to the application, as I mentioned, database, cloud workloads, it's begin with identity. So you need to have that control or the vicinity. That's the important thing. Going a little bit technical, a little bit in depth. So we talk about the zero trust is all about the never trust, always verify. So there are been in industry well known very much tools like we advocating about the MFA, and now we always telling the customers go a little bit beyond that one, go to the role-based access controls, and then the other one is a risk-based access conditional access. That means always verify when someone tries to connect who they are, where they from, the connectivity, and is this a trusted example? Even we go on to the device compliance level. Is the device is authorized or jailbroken device? If that's the case, what is the action I need to take? And now we even telling to the customers on the critical system access, go or even further a little bit more into the session level. Each session level, look at the identity signals, and even take decision based on session, how long, and then who to be given access. Also, so it's a journey. You have to get matured. It's not like just because we demonstrate or we talk about this capability, you should be not jumping with all bandwagon for all of these things. You have to go in a certain pace. And then the other thing is about the least privilege. I think even the least privilege, we are taking a little bit more from the role-based access control now. We even talk about the JIT. It has been there. That's why I said some of these technical terms also been there. It's all about the adaptability, looking at where, at what scenario you need to use just-in-time access for the actual workflows, and then, as I mentioned, for the time-bound permissions. Now, the key thing with all those, for the security perspective, if I look at it, or for the IT team, or whatever the technical word we can use for the department, look at those signals. Now compare with the previous like legacy systems. Now the latest systems, they give a lot of signals. Keep an eye on the signals and about like anomalies, like impossible travel patterns, sudden privilege escalation. Now, some of the question that we used to have challenges from the end customers is, okay, I know there are a lot of signals, but the problem is I have a kind of like a limited resources. How should I actually manage? It's too much for them. So that's why like we always telling like in the beginning I address the situation. Sometimes the legacy security solution will not going to help you because they will not be able to correlate all those signals and then give you the correct, let's say, the picture for the security team take the decision.
Absolutely. I appreciate your thoughts there. Azmie,
Yeah,
continuing from
yeah,
where Susantha talked about the technical aspects, he talked about signals. For me, it is those are symptoms, indicators, or indications of something what is going on. So there are two things I would like to ask you. Today, the environment is more complex. Earlier, it used to be brick and mortar, one data center, job's done. So anything you need to do, it's always there. But today, for the organizations to be competitive, and in the age of AI, you can't build everything in your data center. So you've got to go out, you've got to spread out. So you're talking about one service provider being maybe in the Oracle cloud, another one maybe in a Google environment, another one in a Microsoft environment. And somebody may even say, hey, I would also have an Huawei. So we are talking about multi-vendor, multi-cloud, multi-geography. And the job of a security guy in-house is going to be very, very difficult. So I always visualize like a hospital. right?
Yeah.
Hospital is just one building, but then the hospital is dependent on various departments, services. And when you go to a doctor, he's going to prescribe so many tests, right? And sometimes those services or the tests may not be available to be performed in-house, so they may have to go to another location. So taking that context, how do you look at ensuring visibility and enforcement, and also connect the dots for Susantha, and then I'll take the conversation to Enesh.
Sure, sure. So I'm going to give a simple answer, very
Go
simple
ahead.
answer, and then I will elaborate a bit more on that.
Yeah.
So take this as you mentioned hospital, but I mentioned hotel. All of us
Right.
go for leisure, right? um,
Absolutely.
so when you go into hotel, right? Um, when you check in, you get a key card,
Mm-hmm.
right? You get a key card, and every time you want to go into your room, you have to enter the key card. That doesn't mean that you are in the property of the hotel. That doesn't mean you can, go to any room. You have been given a
Correct.
key card, and you have to present that every time. When you go to the restaurant, you have to present that key card. When you order something, you have to present it because every time it's been asked, right? So this is the fundamental. So it doesn't matter what services that you're taking from the hotel, you still
Yeah.
have to present your identity. So take your key card as your identity part of it. So this is where I want to bring the technical part of it. So the first and fundamental is to deploy a unified identity fabric in your organization, right? So a single platform that spans on-premise systems, multiple clouds, and any SaaS applications, right? But it's one single identity. Okay, once you have the single identity, that is your single source of truth, right? So the
Correct.
identity can be both human and non-human. So that has to be managed through policies. Then you also might have a multiple cloud, multiple SaaS applications where you need to federate identities with organizations, right? There could be a requirement where you have uh, take over another company. They need to integrate together. So this becomes federation, right? So these are things that you'll have to discuss when you're discussing about a hybrid environment. And it is also important that it's not just about having one identity and one fabric, but also the policy and enforcement has to be across all the platforms, right? It is very important. Then the next important point is to make sure that the continuous compliance validations are maintained on all the platforms seamlessly together. There cannot be a variation between one platform to another. It has to be um, same. And of course, you need to make sure that you see the visibility of all the platforms from one area, because without that unified dashboarding showing all the activities across the multiple platform, it is very important for the SOC analyst or the people who are working um, on identifying security threats and mitigating those. It's important to have a cross-platform. Otherwise, there's a lot of time that is consumed. And of course, what I'm talking about is you need to have a security posture that in today's context, that has to be valid. So today, a lot of people talk about implementing SIEM, but today the building blocks is not just SIEM, right? You have threat intelligence, which you give comprehensive threat analytic insights. Then you have XSPM, which is reduce your exposure across your digital state that you have. So your IoT devices, your whichever connected into your network, right? SIEM is part of it. Then you need to have XDR to protect and defend all your workloads, right? Whether you're running on any environment on-premise, cloud, multi-cloud, even SaaS, right? And on top of that, with all the threats that is coming through AI, with generative intelligence, you need to have that AI powered SOC operation as well. That does a lot of automation, enhancement features that will come with the AI, right? That helps the people who are combating threats on a hybrid environment to act faster, resolve faster, right? So these are the key points I wanted to highlight on this.
Excellent views, Azmie. I mean, I spoke about a hospital. You spoke about a hotel. All of us are individuals. So, for me, you're a friend. You're a colleague. There are things I talk to you. There are things I talk to Susantha. There are things I talk to Enesh. There are things I talk to all of you, common, but then there are individual transactional conversations I might have. I'm a son to my parents. I'm a grandson to my grandparents. And I'm a father to my children, a husband to my wife, isn't it? It's the same person, different personas. That's exactly what we are talking about, right? So I want to bring Enesh in now. You heard both Susantha and Azmie setting the context, and I'm going to ask you the most difficult question, right? Susantha spoke about the principles of zero trust, and Azmie spoke about the complexity. He also spoke about the signals, or Susantha spoke about signals. Azmie spoke about visibility through SIEM. And he also compounded that saying you can't just have an SIEM, you need to have threat intel, you need to have exposure management, you also need to have XDR. And then also, he said, you need to be at rocket speed to detect and respond using AI and whatever technology you could bring in. For some organizations, this could be a mammoth task, right? So we are heading towards an era, survival of the fittest, or survival of somebody who can get knocked down, fail fast, and recover quickly, or fail and recover quickly. My question to you is, how do you ensure adaptive authentication and continuous monitoring in closing the security gap? Right? We were talking about so many things. Enesh, over to you.
Thank you, Sujit. That's a legendary question, I would say. And it's a really hard one as well. So let me take it this way, right? So what Susantha and Azmie and Sujit, you collectively say, all right, in a nutshell, we need to make intelligent decisions and embed it into the identity management to get a fruitful outcome. So intelligence is the key word here, right? So the adaptive um, in the zero trust words, right? So the adaptive authentication piece, right, is a key driver on this conversation. So that's an enabler for zero trust identity. Why I'm saying that is, let's take it this way. If you know which device this user, because there are a few elements in the zero trust architecture that we would like to bring in high level, right? Identity, endpoints, network data, workloads, if you take our infrastructure on the other side, and the application is there, right? So collectively, all this architecture in a holistic view, your identity can come from different part of the geography, right? It can be from XYZ place. We don't know, with the enablement of work from home, work from anywhere architecture or the concept. So in considering this, if you can say directly, all right, my identity is coming from a healthy device and then it has this problem, or it is in this patch level. I'm just going back to the nuts and bolts on the technicality. I know it's really hard right now, but if you can say, all right, this is the location it's coming from, this is the device health, and this is the risk level of this particular user, and not applying the same measurement for all the users, but if you can adopt them based on these feeds or the signals, the right words Susantha bringing to the table, the feeds or the signals, and if you can little bit of a spice with the policy wrap around that, saying, which Azmie already highlighted, saying, all right, you need to present your key card. Where's your key card? Where's your trust now? So you need to earn the trust, and then that's not given, right? So if you can bring that holistic view to the identity, and now I'm just going to turn around a 360-degree view from here to MITRE framework or any other threat prediction mechanism or anything what you say. All right, I have a TTP here. That's the tactic, that's the technique, that's the procedure which is going to happen around my identities. Tactic number one, all right, initial access, a phishing email landed on my this user, and it came from this location. And this user is supposed to be in Ireland at this moment, but then seems to be this location, the authentication request coming from Ghana or some other place of the world. And Is that a problem for me? That's the big question mark, right? And then how do I make intelligent based decision? And then where do I see this? So I do have feeds from all over the place right now. And then collectively, I would like to see, all right, is this a love thing? Is this not a love thing? That's the time to respond, time to detect and time to respond. We call this MTTR on the terminology for this one. And how fast you can say, this is a true positive, this is a false positive, no, this is a false negative, or this is a true negative, which we need to go for fine tune on this specific alert in a SOC point of view, right? And on the architecture point of view, all right, I have a problem in my architecture, I have to fix this problem, and this is where it is. So that's where the intelligence comes into play, which is the CTI feeds and different part of intelligence. Not only CTI, it can be human intelligence, it can be different CTI feeds which is pumping in cyber intelligence. So collectively, coming into this whole globe is kind of an oracle in old days, right? Oracle can say, ask a question and say, is this the next predictive, or is this the high risk user for my organization? Can I tell that I achieved my goal?
Absolutely. So when you were giving these examples and explanation, one specific experience came to my mind. I was actually passing through the Delhi International Airport, and I arrived, and I'm at the immigration counter. And we exchanged pleasantries, and I gave my passport. And while he was looking through his system, and I kept asking the officer, do you want me to scan my face? Do you want me to get my fingerprints? Or do you want me to put the fingers? His reaction was, "Tell, system will tell me. If the system says that you need to be scanned, your facial recognition has to be validated, I will tell you. Until such time, relax." And again, I asked, would you ask for the fingerprints as well? No, the system will tell me whether you need to put it in, right? Whether we need to scan. And it'll also tell me which finger needs to be verified or used for verification. And I waited very patiently, maybe about a minute or two. Sometimes when you stand even for a minute, it appears to be ages, right? And then he said, "You're good to go." System said, "I'm good to go." No further verification was required. So I guess that's what all of you all are saying in this conversation, that we can't have one size fit all when it comes to verification. It has to be adaptive. Right? With that note, I just want to move to the final section and segment of our conversation. We spoke about the setting the stage, we understood the background, where we are in terms of this thing, and then we asked ourselves, is there an opportunity for zero trust? Which all of you have said, yes, there's a great opportunity there. Now, the segment we're going to talk about is how do we bridge the gaps? How do we bridge the gaps? So Susantha, what teams or functions need to collaborate more closely to enable this shift?
I think again it goes multiple ways. I would say one is actually SecOps, because SecOps is going to be, these are new buzzword again. Okay, but
Mhm.
the whole idea behind that one is like bringing the threat intelligence, incident response. But this is about helping the understand the let's say the different department, also the coordination part. That's number one. I would say they need to work together. And the other one is these are legacy words, I would say, in a way, identity and access management and IT operation, but in a way, some organizations, it's all one department because they manage the user life cycle, the access control, and then the policy enforcement. But they might not understand the risk context behind that access patterns very well. So then they need to work together. And finally, I again try to think about like the business application owners, because as I mentioned, going back to my previous history, like an example of one company who has different department, they have their business application owners going separately. They also need to understand the access control, what and why scenario, and then what is this least privilege or the role-based access control means. if they can work together, because if the department's going to buy their business application and try to manage themselves, and regardless of the policies what we already have, that's going to be a bigger issue. So I would like to see the cross-functional department between those have a coordination properly. For them, again, I'll go back and say, okay, how actually one company I would like to highlight, how they came up with the addressing that one is within those department, the management, based on the management approval, they went on with a cross-functional identity governance team. So that particular teams, the whole purpose of that one is saying, okay, design the access policies based on the real business needs, and then the detect and respond for the identity threat faster. They define that controls, how these things should be worked properly across the business departments and then across the business functions. Once been defined with that particular department team and the policy has been defined, it has been passed down to the entire organization, like let's say the SOC team separately, identity team separately, application team separately. But rather than working on different silos, one department now actually really helping the organization to govern those rules, and they need to follow that one. But the challenge has been initially, because each department working separately, they were having their own controls. We didn't have that coordination, and then a lot of challenges. But how that particular organization, the example I can say is they came up with a one governance team. So that actually helped them to mitigate and then run, I would say, smoothly to a certain extent, mitigate like some of the challenges they face.
Right. So one word which caught my attention is the word governance. One governance. Right. So I guess that's the binding factor. Right. So you have one team looking at governance, and then you cascade it down. So Inesh, you heard all what we spoke up until now. The bottom line, user experience. And I had the opportunity of listening to bits and pieces of the Google I/O event, which just concluded a couple of days ago. The game is changed. I mean, it's no longer URL based. So it's the experience for the end user has changed and is changing so rapidly. Given that shift, how would all what we have spoken till now enhance user experience, or are the users going to be dissatisfied? Inish?
Absolutely, Sujit. So when we're talking about identity involvement right here, we're not focusing on how the other technology has been evolved as well. So let's take the web as an example. Web 2.0 jump forward, really big jump to Web 3.0. And same like what happened to the identities? No one is speaking on the identity side of the house, right? So the identity was being digitized on the Web 2.0 and Web 3.0, you're in metaverse. You can see everything on the metaverse, and your identity is also on metaverse as well. As an identity, as an avatar, you now have a real body or something inside this metaverse as well. So coming back to the topic on Google I/O as well, so they presented cool features on the Meta glasses now, and the Google glasses. So all these fancy features coming in, the identity, securing the identity has to be a smooth journey, and the user experience has to be elevated. It should not be saying no as a security person for everything, and we should be giving them the access far more secure way. And how we gonna do that? We should be able to integrate this with our threat modeling capabilities and different ways of securing this whole identity piece. So once we embedded this into the threat models, we'll be able to feed back into our detection mechanisms. So if something goes wrong, we know exactly what's going to happen. Like the example you said on the airport checks, right? So the TSA won't take everyone out and sniff the dogs, right? So TSA in Dubai, the very first experience when I landed there for the work is you just stand there and look into a camera and you're all sorted. That's all. You don't need to do anything at all. But then if you are in a different position, let's say a different high-risk zone as an identity, they'll call you back, and then you'll go for a full screening mechanism. That's separate, total separate. Not everyone goes for that, right? Has to be adopted, has to be risk-based, has to be dynamic, not treated everyone as the same, every identity as the same, what I mean. So this identity treating mechanism has to be different from the feeds that you get from the intel and feeds what you get from different mechanisms, and then say, all right, this is a high risk to my organization, this is a high risk to my environment, how do I treat this?
Excellent. Azmie, you have a lot of interactions with the C-suite, government, private sector, and the quoted companies as well. What do you normally advise them in terms of what should they be looking at, especially in a
Sure.
zero trust environment?
Sure. I think I want to add a few things to
Go ahead.
the Susantha list of teams because it comes as part of unified governance. I want to add the development team, DevOps team, into that is part of your shift to monitor and manage your alignment and security, identity and security. You also need to have a compliance team that ensures the regulatory requirements are met in the organizations. Especially when you're talking about financial organizations, you definitely need government heavily needs a regulatory compliance requirement team. You also need a team that also look into legal and privacy aspects of it, especially important when it comes to the government. So these are all part of the team for Zero Trust, and they all come together in a unified governance. You need to establish a team, working committee, joint working committee with all these people on together as looking after unified governance. Right. So once you have the team in place, you also need to budget. Every single department should have a shared budget for this, regardless of which organization that you're working for. In the government, you're looking at is basically looking at different ministries, both independent organizations and central government and local bodies like the divisional secretariats and things like that. So they all need to be managed the budget in that particular area, right? Similar with organizations with different departments, they need to have that budget. Then they also need to have a common objective with the correct together a success matrix, which is common to all the teams. It cannot be different. It has to be same because they are all going to go into one single goal. Then the other point is that you need to stop eliminate. You need to pinpointing, whose fault, where the issue happens. You have to work together. So that is very important because you have to collaborate for the accountability of this. So this is a fundamental requirement which I advise to all a set of people, because apart from just talking about and working on the security aspects of it, and it's an IT job. No, it is not an IT job today, right? It's a vast job that, as we discussed. So they have to collaborate and work together in order to definitely overcome these challenges that we have in the organizations.
Absolutely, Azmie. I mean, picking a few keywords, right? Identity is going to be a business enabler, and you need to have a robust governance. And identity is across all departments, human and non-human, so which means a shared budget. Right. So with that, I just want to go into the final segment, rapid fire. 30 seconds. What comes to your mind is the answer you would give me, right? So I'd probably start with Azmie, then go to Enesh, and then go to Susantha. What's the most common mistakes companies make when they embark on the zero trust journey?
Yeah, I mean, treating technology deployment is a technology rather than it's a fundamental core requirement in an organization. And the culture of that organization needs to be adopted, right? And so that's what I see that a lot of people ignore that. And you need to understand, just like any business, there are risks, and you need to ensure the operational efficiency. measured. You also need to make sure you also enable, just because of security, do not adhere to, stop the productivity of the users. You need to ensure that the business enable matrices are also utilized, because that drives the entire conversation for organization.
Right. Enesh, one mistake which organizations make.
Thinking zero trust as a project with an end date. That's the main problem. So it's a journey.
Excellent.
It's not a project with an end date saying, all right, by 2028, we're going to stop zero trust and we are 100% on zero trust. It's never going to happen. It's a journey. It should be an enabler to run the company and support business. So that's my key take on that.
Yeah. Susantha?
Yeah, just adding what Enesh said, yes, it's not a one-time project. On top of that one, it's not applicable for me, it's for my employees only. So sometimes like the management part like that, but it is not. As I mentioned from the beginning, under zero trust, everyone will be questioned in this case for verifying. So that's one thing. Like sometimes I see management, some of the management will believe like it's for my employees, not for me. It is not. It's for everyone across the organization.
Absolutely. Let's do something different. Let's predict the future. Enesh, I'm going to go with you first. What do you think would happen in the next 12 months for identity and security? What's your prediction?
It has to be embedded with AI driven identity, and then the response to any sort of incident has to be AI driven support mechanism as well, because we are in a different era. We are not in digital era at the moment. We are in AI era, and we have to gear up, shift gears, and we have to gear up and buckle up to face the consequences of AI as well.
Absolutely. Susantha?
Well, what Enesh said, I just only have to adapt that one little, given a little bit.
Yep.
There is a story. Yes, now the attacks are not even, let's say, more human driven. It will be more AI driven. It's going to be, and it's already happening. So be
Yep.
prepared for that one. So the organization should not take their security or all the concept we talk about very lightly anymore, because by the time we are talking now, it's already happening. All these attacks, like given methods. So better be prepared. Organization need to take that decision quickly, not to delay.
Absolutely. Azmie?
Yeah, I think both of them have said the same, similar things. I'm going to say similar thing. The attack vector, of course, is going to increase drastically. It's going to be more than the endpoint and the network. The identity is primarily focused, and the identity, as I mentioned previously, identity is not just by the user, but it also the non-human identities that we use. They are going to be the core areas that today, when we look at all the breaches, that is going to get targeted. And of course, you need to, in order to do that, people are going to expand the entire SOC operation, focus on using the threat intelligence and hunting capabilities. So the IT teams are going to expand as well. And definitely you have to use AI. There is no way out of it. You have to use it. Even today, there are a lot of IT SecOps operations are using AI workflows and AI agents, right? You need that workforce in order to mitigate the risk that you have coming into your organization in the future.
So let me also add my observations in terms of common mistakes which people make when it comes to zero trust. A lot of people think zero trust is a product. So you implement a technology, zero trust tick mark. So for me, it is not. It's a framework. And it's an adaptive framework. It continuously evolves. As technology evolves, as the external world evolves, your framework has to evolve. Right? So your policy framework has to be adaptive as well. Organizations typically say we will review it once a year, but I think we are fast approaching that we need to review it every quarter. That's my prediction, right? So you've got to keep reviewing it more frequently than a checklist tick mark saying I've reviewed it. So you've got to make it more operational. My prediction is there's going to be a lot of laws coming into play, like AI, how governments are going to do that. I mean, like EU has already come in, White House has given directives, and a couple of other countries have already come up with their own set of laws. And if every country is going to come up with their own laws, the biggest challenge every organization is going to face is complying to these requirements every single country. So rather than unifying as one, these laws are going to divide the countries, which in my mind sometimes can become operationally a huge burden for companies, especially the companies which are trying to be global. So technologies are going to evolve, and the rate at which it's going to evolve is going to be months. It's going to be less than 6 months, and adoption by organizations have to be much faster than that. Right. So as new technologies come, the threat actors are also going to use that to gain advantage over the organization. The same tool we use to protect will be used against us. So with that note, I want to thank you for being here and sharing your wealth of experience, your insights. Right. And I personally gained, it was very refreshing, and I hope that the viewers will gain out of this. Right? There are points which you can take it and implement. There are points which you have to ponder. There are areas you probably have to go back and do a lot of reading to gain an understanding. Your perimeter has changed. It's no longer a brick and mortar, not a gate, not a firewall, but it's going to be your identity. How do you grant access to your identity, to that information, or to the workloads? And you can't make it cumbersome. You've got to make it adaptive, risk-based. So with that thought, once again, thank you very much. And I look forward to seeing all of you again. So viewers, I hope you found this very useful. Please like, subscribe, and share this video. Until I see you again in another edition, stay safe and take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks all.